Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video and the final fight of Heroes Jubilee 42 Boss Battle 2. It is the single target stage against Gobta himself. There are no really wonky mechanics to go over for Gobta. He lowers greens, okay, he's got physical resistance and crit resistance. He lowers an ally's attack by 30% for 2 turns, and he gets extra defense. There is no alt gauge denial like Boss Battle 1 has. There's no bind. It's just a straight up nuke fest. It's just that you need a single target nuker, or you have an AoE nuker like Momiji who can do more damage than that. The starting hand is 2 oranges, which makes this much easier to get by. You can bring the free-to-play Rieger from last meta. He's got a double alt swap and an orange convert, so if you don't have or the new Dark Soe, you can just use Rieger. Or you could bring Violet, one of the two. Either way works, but at least this is a bit more accessible because the previous free-to-play character is good, and he's fire and magic, so he works fairly well. Apart from that, I mean, the same rules that I went over for Boss Battle 1 apply. If you don't have the meta or something remotely close to it, you're not going to get this high of a score, just straight up. The Ogre's Pride team introduced way too much damage creep to where everything else below it is inconsequential at this point. So you're going to have a really, really good run, and followed by a lot of, what look to be really, really bad runs, but it's the only options that we have. And fire, even though we've gotten continual buffs this month and last month, a lot of those characters are super old, and they just do not do the damage that we can do in today's current game scenario, I guess is the way I'm going to word that. But let's go ahead and jump in. Also, again, as a side note, I put this in front of the Boss Battle 1 video. I didn't actually record a run for Konosuba in Boss Battle 2, but they're all single target alts, so it actually makes a lot more sense to use it in Boss Battle 2. But I didn't record it, because not a lot of people have access to Konosuba at this point. The people who were playing around here are either super sweats and they are already using the meta, or they stopped playing. So I didn't really feel the need to show off a team that is over a year old and has never and will never come back. So just know that if you do have access to it, it certainly does work for Boss Battle 2 as well. Shock surprise, the team that we used for Boss Battle 1 beatdown is the same that we're going to use for Boss Battle 2. Who'd have thunk? Why? Well, because it's the best goddamn damaging team in the entire game and there's really nothing that compares to it. So the same strategy is still here. It's the now orange convert, which Soe can still handle, or Violet. We could run either of them and their orb change. We're still looking for the exact thing, though, so you do want orb change with Soe turn 1, and then turn 2 you are looking for that RNG for a Violet orb change and then the Elmesia buff. It's just that this stage doesn't even have the alt gauge denial that Rieger did in stage 1, so it's very easy to get the EX alts now. So, let's just show it, I guess. Alright, so turn 1, orb change with Soe, move on with your day, bring in the 2 fire ladies, and we'll lead Elmesia up front. And then turn 2, you're again looking for that Violet hand, 2 oranges and a green, or 2 oranges or an orange and a green, whatever combination, just 4 blues, or that. So Violet, there you go, 2 oranges and a green, Elmesia orbs, sure. I had to make a cut there because I went to go eat dinner. And then we use the charm effect. We can only put it on 1 unit, though. So instead of getting, the 30% free alt gauge we were getting in Boss Battle 1, we're only ever going to get 15%. But, again, Gobta doesn't nerf our alt gauge at all, so it's not super big to worry about. We are still running the alt gauge on blue charm for maximum increase. So, okay. This hand is a Soe hand. Excellent. We don't actually have to do anything here except use the convert. Since the charm is still active, or the enamor effect is still active, we don't need to bring Elmesia in. So we can run it and just get more free alt gauge for all 3 of our nuking characters. And, yeah. So, I don't think we need to sit here for 5 more turns. If you've used the team in any sort of capacity, you understand what needs to be done past this point. All the RNG is the first couple of turns, and then it becomes very easy. You will still be saving the magic buff on Soe and Momiji by turn 7, and then sending them away, and then getting back up to 400 points for the nuke. So that is still important, but other than that, it's a stacking team. So we're going to skip ahead a bit. Alright, so this is the final turn. Actually, let's cut back a little bit. So here, we have Violet. We've used her magic buff. Momiji and Soe both have their EX ults, so they are ready to go. Magic buff is on them. Shuna needs to come in for Soe, so we could alt swap and use the Violet orb change at low cost, because you do need things to go a little bit your way in order to have 400 skill points on the nuke to use the other skills, and keeping them low is one of them. If you have both your orb changes at like 90 or 100 SP, you're not going to have enough to full buff, which is unfortunate. So here, boom, we'd also need orbs for everybody, which thankfully, I mean, look at this. We've got these orbs coming in. Okay, cool. We're going to alt buff with Almesia. We'll bring Momiji or someone in. And boom. Alright, and then Soe comes in. And it's another blue. So now we have a full 6 send with a Momiji orb in there, which is extra good, because she'll do a lot more damage than Shuna will on her orb, because she has that extra fire buff. So now we've used all the other buffs, the Shuna buff, the 2 Momijis, and then Soe's for the maximum power. 2 stacks of Benimaru. We'll send Soe, then Momiji, then Shuna, and we'll send the Momiji 200% orb blast. 6.8 million, 24.6, 20 million, and then the 200% orb does 1.6 million damage by itself, which puts us at a high score of 54 million. And I don't really think I'm going to get much higher than this unless I get like 3 Momiji orbs on that nuke turn. So this is my highest score so far, 54 million. The other whales who have higher dupe levels will get higher than this, but this is my highest scoring run. Alright, the first alt team is, maybe you got lucky and you pulled Momiji off of your free tickets. You've got some EX characters to work with. You have a generic stacking protector like Commander Renard, Diablo, not Primal Demon, but Fount of Wisdom, Diablo would also work here. Stacking alt resistance down is still generic. Violet, magic buff for Momiji. Guy, alt buff and orb changing. Between these two, we can pretty much cover almost anything. Blanc, alt swapping, weakness strike, and then synergy resistance down, which pairs well with Idol Shuna, who is fire magic single target, gives synergy rate and magic allies 40% synergy power. And then Momiji, she has also synergy resistance down at 60% instead of 50, so hers is better, but still, she's AoE, single target fire magic. This can work, obviously. If you don't have Guy, you substitute a different alt unit in. If you don't have Violet, swaps a different orange orb changer in. If you have no one, then free-to-play Rieger works, technically. He is available. He is an alt swapper and an orange orb changer, so he takes the spot of 2 of those characters. So this can work. Alright, so turn 1, we're going to orb change with Violet, and then turn 2, we're looking for either another Violet hand or a Guy hand. One of those 2 will work, because we do have enough points to use Violet again, and we got a Violet hand, so that works out fairly well. We're only really concerned with getting alts for Momiji and Shuna, because they're the only fire units here. The weakness strike doesn't really apply to anybody else. Guy is physical, and he's critting, and you don't want to crit because you have extra crit resistance on Gobta, so that's really off the table. Violet is type disadvantage, so you don't really want to nuke with her. So Blanc would be your next best option, at the end of the day. She won't get anything from Renard except the weakness, or no, not the weakness, but the alt resistance down, which will help her. But she would get the synergy and synergy power from Shuna if we were to use them all at the same time. I just don't think we get an alt for her. So we do have an alt for Momiji already, and this hand, while looking pretty bleak, is still doable because we have 2 very competent orb changers on the team. So Violet can take care of 2 oranges and a green. Guy can take care of 2 greens and an orange. Like, we're pretty set. Running both of them together is really, really good, and they are buffing different things. It's just that if you want to run both of them, you are looking for a magic-focused team, because one's buffing alt, one's buffing magic. But here, we take them out, we send the orbs, and we call it a day. At this point, there is no RNG, realistically. I don't think, well, we do need to hold buffs, and I think I do that wrong in this fight, so there's definitely room for improvement here. I should have used the magic buff and maybe even the weakness strike on the final turn, because Shuna is only 55 points, so we are a little bit more forgiven on the skill cost that we need on the final turn. It's just that I misplay at the end of this and don't swap in and swap out and have my rotations set correctly to give both Shuna and Momiji as many buffs as possible. So, and we'll see that coming up here shortly. But it is, pretty simple. Orb change, alt swap. We call it a good. And then your only RNG is turn 2 and turn 7, which is the same for any stacking team in Jubilee, realistically. So now we have both the X alts. That's great. At this point, I should bring in Violet or someone here. So we actually use Shuna's orb change to greens, because we had an orange, and we would have had 2 greens with that, and then we used Guy's orb change. Great. And then we send away. So here, because I had already swapped in a character, we can't really... No, actually we didn't. So, yeah. So this is the problem right here, is that we have 2 buffs that you can hold, but they're in the back. So, and we need to swap these characters out. So ideally, what should have happened is that we would have Blanc or Violet up front instead of Guy, and we would be able to use both the synergy buff and one of these 2 buffs here, either Violet or Blanc, put them on and then send both of them away. And then on the nuke turn, Guy can be freely swapped out because it's just an alt buff, and then whoever already else is there, whoever buff we already used, would get swapped out, and we would be able to full power. But we can't do that here, so let's just jump in ahead. And we just swap them both out, which means that on this nuke turn, we're just going to have to do a little fuckery. So Momiji is the strongest character, so we're going to give her all of the buffs. So weakness strike, and then we'll swap Blanc out for Shuna. So we're actually going to miss that 3rd alt there, because we had to swap her out. But now we can Violet buff, now we can do the Momiji buffs, now we can do one final stack of Renard, so definitely room for improvement on this team. Just, you gotta be smart. 3.9 million, and then Shuna 1.7 million because she didn't have all the buffs. It's not a super great score, but it's certainly a score, 6.2 million. So it's an option for you. Just know that you can play a bit smarter. If you don't have all these EX characters, don't worry about it, just use what you've got. Use what makes sense and is available to you, and move on with your day. The next alternate team is another Visions of Coleus-led team, and we're going to be using Tempest Elite Rimuru. Definitely not my most favorite fire unit, but is a single target fire character, and he is on Octagram Demon Lord, which means Lumi will give him attack stacks. So we're also going to bring Tempest Elite Benimaru for the 50% physical buff and 25% alt resistance down. He is a special converter for blues. Going to bring Fount of Wisdom Albus, Pierce, and Pierce resistance down for Rimuru. Blanc, again, here for alt swapping and synergy resistance down and weakness strike. And then free to play Rieger. He's going to convert our turn 1. He also has an alt swap, so now we have the ability to alt swap with multiple characters and keep one of them cheaper, or keep both of them cheaper, actually. And then Rimuru, for himself, has a 30% attack buff, 100% alt, and his second skill does have greater burn and 10% stacking weakness strike every single time we use it. So we are going to make liberal use of that burn skill, and we are going for 2 alts, both Rieger and Rimuru, because they're both fire, which means that the burn will affect Gobta in pretty decent ways, more so than you'd expect burn to do at this point in the game, but it's an option for you. And Tempest Elite Rimuru and Benimaru are currently featured on the Part 3 ticket banner, and Benimaru is in the Ogre's Pride, just banners in general. Alright, so like I said, turn 1, we are going to use Rieger. Being a free-to-play character, that's very good that we can bring him, and he has pretty good viability on this team, being Fire, Magic, Alt Swapper, and Orb Changer all mixed into one. At the start of the fight, before we start stacking on Rimuru, he actually does more damage on his normal orbs than Rimuru, because Rimuru is physical, and Gopta has that physical resistance. So now, we're going to get more stacks here. So we have 3 greens and an orange. Thankfully, we have Albus and Benimaru who can take care of that. And that's pretty much the RNG for turn 2, is looking for either just a Benimaru or just an Albus orb change, or a combination of both. But now Rimuru does more damage because now we have a stack of attack, we have the synergy, and even this hand looks pretty awful, but we can still make use of it by using this. And then we can start using the burn skill from Rimuru and start stacking up his extra weakness strike. If you want to optimize it, you'll want to make sure that you have 2 stacks of burn on the nuke turn. That way you're getting an extra 60% extra damage from all the fire attacks we're going to do, the single target ult from both Rieger and Rimuru. So if you want to optimize it, that's what you're going to do. You can continue to use the burn skill over and over and over again just to stack Rimuru's weakness strike higher and higher. But you also got to make sure you have enough points on the nuke turn. So you don't want it to be super expensive, but you can make use of it to do a little bit extra damage here and there. So now we have 2 stacks of burn here, because it lasts for multiple turns, 2 turns. And then the burn actually does another, like, 50k or something like that? 36k, alright, not as much. But it will go higher, and it will really, really be impacted by the alts that we're going to do, because they're going to be fairly buffed up. Rieger being magic means that we will not get the physical buff on him from Benimaru. You know, unfortunate, yes. The end of the world, no. He is a free-to-play character with not really great gear, not really great attack stats, and certainly not an EX ult. So, it is an option. But single-target fire units are not something we have, really. Like, for EX characters, Shuna, Rimuru, Idle Shuna, who we used in the last clip, sure. Apart from that, there's not really much else that you can get to. So we'll bring Benimaru in, and then we'll use that. We're going to not use the burn stack here, so we can keep it as cheap as possible. I don't actually remember if I can get both stacks on the nuke, but we will use it here, certainly, because we have just an easy orb change with Albus. So, orb change, boom. Expensive, yes, it is what it is. Blanc, alt swap away. And then burn stack, boom. So that's 30%. We are ready to nuke next turn. We have the EX ult for Rimuru. We have technically an EX ult for Rieger now. 2 stacks of Lumi. Rimuru's been stacking up his attack from Lumi and his weakness strike every single time we burn. Now we have 400 points to use. We have a pretty good hand. So weakness strike on both of them. Good. Albus comes in. Pierce and Pierce down on everyone. And then Benimaru in for his physical buff, the attack buff, the burn stack. And we have enough points to make it a full hand. It's just very unfortunate that none of them are Rimuru orbs. And we have 3 Benimaru orbs. A lot of good that does us. So 2 stacks of Lumi. And we'll send Rieger last because he is stronger. He does 186,000, not great. 2.9 million for Rimuru though. And then the 200% orb does 70k. And the burn did 1.9 million damage, which is pretty impactful. Yeah, 1.9 million. So a lot of your score came from just the extra 60% burn because we have 2 stacks going. So useful, certainly. Not as good of a nuker, but certainly did give us a higher score. So that's the end of this run. 5.7 million was the total. It's still an S rank though. Maybe you've got it, maybe you don't, who knows. But let's move on to this really, really sad team that I've got for you. Okay. I'm sorry, but This is... I was drunk or something when I came up with this. Summer Treyni is a blue protector, right? She's a burst protector, but she does have the ability to go for longer fights because she guarantees all of your future orbs are going to be blue. So as long as you can make it past turn 1 and turn 2, you will never have to worry about orbs again. But you just have to make it past turn 1 and 2. So she also gives you 40 skill points every time you use her, which is nice. She also, what else does she do? She lowers enemy defense by 40%, 50%, somewhere. She lowers defense, which is pretty stupid and useless at this point in the game. But Water Rimuru, free to play, can handle turn 2 if we need to. OG Fire Shizu is a fire unit. Christmas Shizu is a fire unit who can support other fire characters, and as you can see, we have 4 of them. Violet, single target DPS, will be our main damage source, quote unquote. She has guaranteed crit, guaranteed pierce, she has the attack buff, she has burn on her skill as well, which if we have 4 fire characters attacking, or 3, you can get extra burn damage, just like Tempest Elite Rimuru did last clip. And then we've got Rieger, who has the alt swap, which we're not going to use, but he also has the turn 1 orb change, which we are going to use. This is, I don't have any Battle EX characters, and I pulled Summer Treyni off some random tickets team, and I have nothing else to accomplish in this fight except get it done, and we're certainly going to do that here. Alright, so turn 1, you could either use Rieger's orb change or Rimuru's self-convert, which we're actually going to use now instead for turn 1, as long as he's in the first slot. And then we'll bring Rieger in for OG Shizu. She has the worst stats by far. So 53, 7700 with a synergy. Now, even though Gobta does have crit resistance and physical resistance, you should probably just always keep using Violet's skills because they last for multiple turns and they will help your damage out. So Rimuru, orb change that 1, and now we have access to Treyni, which means that we are going to get 40 skill points here. More importantly, though, our future hand is going to be blue orbs from this point forward. And as long as you don't, use double Treyni or something and then you don't get her back for some reason, you will always and constantly have every single future orb be blue, unless it's an alt. And then you just send the alt, and then the next hand will be blue. So that's what's nice. So we're going to stack more burn on. Boom. So 2 stacks. We're going to use Treyni to make up those points that we just spent. Also guarantee that our next hand is full of blue orbs. We'll bring Shizu in. We have the points, so let's use the extra pierce power to help Violet do even more damage here, which does help out the burn. So 12k right there is pretty good. I stopped using the crit skill for a while on this run, and I'm not quite sure why, but I do, and don't do that. So now we've got 3 stacks of burn, another Treyni, which means another future hand of blues, and 40 skill points. And now we'll have the Violet alt this next turn, and I think someone else's alt? No, just her. Okay. But now we have a nice hand of Violet. Perfect. We've got 2 stacks of burn. Let's use the fire buff now from Shizu. Fire attack up, fire resistance down. Coupled with 2 stacks of burn, so 68k. We don't have the critter on, so we could have done more. And then the burn does 60k. So yeah, this is your life if you have to use this team. At least the RNG is low, because you're guaranteeing your every orb is blue. So, I mean, it's very brain dead, redundant, but also quite sad if this is what we have to do for alternate teams on this fight, because it's there's just not a lot of other options. We'll use the fire attack buff again because we have 2 alts and 1 stack of burn. Okay, cool, thank you. 42,000 damage. Ooh, breaking banks over here. 27.5. We are at 669,000, but the super counter 703. This is the final turn, and it's all Rieger orbs. Definitely not what I would envision as my best nuke turn by any means, but it's what we got. So let's send it. Put the fire attack on. There's nothing else we can do. We don't have enough points now to use another stack of the burn. And yeah, that's gonna do it. We don't even break 1 million with this team. We could have, maybe, if I had been smarter with the Violet crit synergy skill, or crit pierce skill, but oh well, you can make this team a little better on your own time. But there are 4 teams that you can use, well, 4 and a calf, I guess, because the Konosuba team, that you can use for Boss Battle 2. Again, I apologize in advance, because it's either the meta or it's a whole bunch of shit after that. But if you have any other teams that you have found that works that I did not showcase here, please let me know in the comments so other people can see that and try and take advantage of it. But that's it from me. Take it easy, and I will see you all later.